There's a video going around of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney saying a few words that should terrify foreign leaders who are still trying to appease Donald Trump. We are masters in our own home. This is a very short video. This might be the single most important thing said to Donald Trump by a world leader since he came back to office. Let's take a listen.
Last spring, I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promise that that will never, ever happen. We are keeping that promise. Canada is becoming stronger and less dependent on America. We are already giving ourselves more than they can take away. And we are just getting started. As we observed earlier this week in St. John's, Canadians don't submit to the weather, we thrive in it. We don't wait to see which way the wind's blowing or surrender ourselves to the waves to be storm-tossed by events. We set our own course. We make our own weather. Au Canada, nous sommes maîtres chez nous de l'océan à l'autre. Building Canada strong for all.
I see this as different from the other trade blowups. We talked about the tariffs in the last segment, but this is really bigger than the tariffs. Trump's government is falling apart here during these negotiations. And the reason that these talks collapsed wasn't that Mark Carney was being unreasonable or that Canadian negotiators were being unreasonable. Trump's own trade team couldn't even agree on what they wanted. You had Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Trade Representative Jameson Greer at each other's throats over the metal tariffs. Back in April, Lutnick went on stage at a Washington conference and trashed Canada's negotiating strategy. He said, "It's the worst one I've ever heard. Canada sucks." Not exactly statesmanship. And then according to reporting, Lutnick blew up a preliminary deal that Greer's team had already been negotiating, saying they sprung it on us. This was his own administration's deal. It was sprung on him. Now, Mark Carney noticed this, and he said it out loud in front of reporters. Our negotiating team is unified. Our negotiating team knows the objective. Everybody's in the loop. And then he says, you cannot say that about the U.S. administration. A foreign head of government on the record says the U.S. government can't even get its story straight, and he is completely correct. Now, earlier in the show, I mentioned Ontario's Premier Doug Ford, a conservative, not a Trump-hating leftist. And he compared Trump to a guy who steals your lunch money your first day, and then your hat the second day, and then your shoes the third day, which is not somebody that you want to trust. First, really quick, a word from our sponsor. Most of my work is not just what happens on camera. It's the prep, the calls, meeting with my team, figuring out what ideas do we want to produce. And this is why the Plod Note Pro has been so useful for me. They're one of our sponsors. The Plod Note Pro is about the size of a credit card. It's thin enough to slide into a wallet. It attaches magnetically to the back of my phone, and I can use it for meetings, calls, interviews, brainstorming. If I want to talk through an idea without stopping to type notes as I go, I just hit record. I have my conversation. Plod will transcribe the audio. It'll separate the speakers, give me a summary of the points that were most important, and even turn that into action items of what do I have to do. I can also search everything later with the Ask Plod feature. And Plod is also built around enterprise-level privacy and security standards. Check it out. Go to plod.ai/Pakman and use the code Pakman for 10% off all products. The link is in the description. Now, back to the video. And Trump at 1 a.m. on Sunday was on Truth Social, of course, ranting that Canada wants the benefits of being a state without being one. Again, going back to this 51st state nonsense, multiple exclamation points and, 1 a.m., all of the normal stuff. I think the political math is relatively simple. Tariffs raise prices. It's an import tax. The Fed's own research has determined that Trump's trade policy is causing inflation to be higher in the United States. Americans are paying more because of this policy. We are now 70-something days from the midterms. And the polling is that Democrats are already more trusted by voters than Republicans on the economy. And Trump is picking a fight that guarantees higher prices on groceries and higher prices on other goods right before people vote. Mark Carney realizes this. He knows he has leverage. That's why he didn't fold. I don't, I know I'll get emails from MAGAs going, David, you seem so happy that the United States is failing. Well, the United States is failing because of Trump, and I'm not happy about it. Trump has seen his team implode, and the political clock is ticking. And Canada decided we don't really need to blink because they're screwing themselves. The part that gets beyond the relationship between the US and Canada, which should be a good relationship, and it's arguably worse than it's been in decades. Other countries are watching what's going on. You've got 10 nations already signed on to Trump's so-called reciprocal trade deals this year. And every single one of those governments has now seen Canada walk away and get away with it. Trump built the whole strategy on no one will ever call my bluff. Mark Carney called Trump's bluff on camera, and so far he has won. Now, Trump has a decision to make, and I know the decision that the Republicans who are on the ballots in November want Trump to make. Trump sort of has two choices now that Canada has called his bluff. He holds firm and continues to see the economy get more and more screwed up, things get more expensive, and risks more Republican voters going to the polls in November and saying, these people screwed me. Prices are too high. They promise lower. Everything's higher. I'm going to vote for a Democrat, or maybe even some of them don't go to the polls and they stay home, but it's all damaging to Republicans. That's one option. The other option is Trump folds, for lack of a better term, comes back to the table, says, all right, I didn't mean it. Tacos, maybe is the right phrase. And that is obviously what Republicans want him to do, because it's the Republicans on the ballot who realize this guy is seriously screwing us. And as we heard from some longtime Republican voters earlier, many of them are saying, I'm not voting for Republicans this time. So Trump is stuck between a rock and a hard place, but not out of any circumstantial parameters. It's from his own doing. And he's going to have to figure out what he is going to do. How much does he care about saving Republicans in November, bearing in mind that Republicans losing the House means that Trump and his administration is effectively shut down for the last 2 years of his presidency. It's arguably bad for Trump either way. We know what's better for the country. We know what would be better for Trump's Republican Party, but that's not really what Trump cares about at the end of the day.